warm summer night in July 2013 in the quiet town of Hartford, Wisconsin, a mother walked into her daughter's bedroom expecting to wake her for the day. What she found instead would shatter not only her world, but an entire community's sense of safety. 19-year-old Jessie Blodgett lay motionless in her bed, and something was terribly, terribly wrong. There were no signs of forced entry, no obvious signs of a struggle, just a young woman who had been full of life the night before, now gone. And as investigators would soon discover, the person responsible was someone who had been hiding in plain sight all along. Jessie Blodgett wasn't just another college student. She was the kind of person who left an impression on everyone she met. Growing up in Hartford, she had developed a deep passion for music that went beyond just performing. She was studying music education at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee because she didn't just want to make music herself. She wanted to teach others to find that same joy. She was involved in local theater productions, always eager to be part of something creative, something that brought people together. Her friends and family described her as someone who genuinely cared about making the world a better place. She was an activist, someone who believed in standing up for what was right, the kind of person who saw potential in everyone and everything around her. July 15th, 2013 started like any other day for Jessie's mother. But when she went to check on her daughter that morning, she knew immediately that something was wrong. Jessie wasn't moving. She wasn't breathing. The panic that must have flooded through her in that moment is unimaginable. She called for help, but it was too late. When the autopsy results came back, they confirmed what investigators had begun to suspect. Jessie had been strangled. Someone had taken her life in the most personal, violent way possible, and they had done it right there in her own bed, in her own home, where she should have been safe. The investigation began immediately, and the community of Hartford was in shock. This was a small town where people knew each other, where violent crime like this simply didn't happen. Who could have done this, and why? There were no signs of forced entry, which meant that either Jessie had let her killer in, or they had access to the home somehow. Detectives started piecing together Jessie's last known movements, talking to friends, family, anyone who might have seen or heard something unusual. And as they dug deeper, a name kept coming up: Daniel Bartelt. He was a former classmate of Jessie's, someone she had known for years. They had even had a brief romantic connection at one point, though it hadn't developed into anything serious. Daniel Bartelt seemed like an unlikely suspect at first. He was just another young man from the area, someone who had grown up in the same circles as Jessie. But as investigators looked closer, things started to not add up. Bartelt's behavior after Jessie's death raised red flags. He seemed overly interested in the investigation, asking questions, trying to insert himself into the narrative. And then detectives made a connection that would blow the case wide open. Just weeks before Jessie's murder, there had been another attack on a young woman in nearby Richfield, Wisconsin. She had survived, but barely. Someone had attacked her violently, and she had managed to fight back and escape. When investigators compared the details of that attack to Jessie's murder, the similarities were chilling. The survivor from Richfield was able to provide information that helped investigators, and when they started looking at Daniel Bartelt more closely in connection with both cases, the evidence began to pile up. Surveillance footage placed him in areas connected to both crimes, but it was the DNA evidence that sealed his fate. Forensic analysis linked Bartelt directly to Jessie's murder. The science didn't lie. He had been there. He had done this. And as investigators dug into his digital life, they found even more damning evidence. Bartelt had tried to cover his tracks. He had deleted files from his devices, attempted to erase evidence of his involvement. He had even tried to mislead authorities, pointing them in different directions, playing the concerned friend while knowing exactly what he had done. The arrest of Daniel Bartelt sent shockwaves through Hartford. People couldn't believe it. This was someone they knew, someone who had walked among them, gone to school with their children. How could someone who seemed so normal be capable of something so horrific? But as more details emerged during the investigation and eventual trial, a darker picture of Bartelt began to form. He had a history of violent behavior that people either hadn't noticed or had dismissed. There were warning signs that, in hindsight, seemed glaringly obvious. But that's often how these cases go. The monster doesn't always look like a monster until it's too late. The trial was emotionally devastating for everyone involved, but especially for Jessie's family. They had to sit through testimony, look at evidence, relive the worst day of their lives over and over again. Prosecutors presented their case methodically, building an overwhelming argument for Bartelt's guilt. The DNA evidence alone was damning, but combined with the surveillance footage, his connection to the Richfield attack, and his suspicious behavior after Jessie's death, there was no reasonable doubt. The defense tried to create alternative theories to suggest that maybe someone else could have been responsible, but the evidence was too strong. The jury saw through any attempts to muddy the waters. When the verdict came down, Daniel Bartelt was found guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. The courtroom was filled with emotion, relief, anger, grief, all mixing together in a moment that brought some measure of justice, but could never bring Jessie back. At sentencing, Bartelt was given life in prison without the possibility of parole. He would never walk free again. He would spend the rest of his days behind bars, paying for what he had done. But for Jessie's family, no sentence could ever be enough. No amount of time could bring their daughter back. No punishment could undo the pain and loss they would carry for the rest of their lives. But Jessie's parents, Buck and Joy Blodgett, made a decision that would honor their daughter's memory in the most powerful way possible. They could have retreated into their grief, shut themselves off from the world, and no one would have blamed them. Instead, they chose to turn their pain into purpose. They founded the Love Greater Than Hate Project, an organization dedicated to preventing violence and promoting education about healthy relationships. The name itself is a testament to their philosophy. They refused to let hate win. They refused to let their daughter's death be in vain. Instead, they would spread love, awareness, and hope. The Love Greater Than Hate Project focuses on reaching young people, teaching them about the warning signs of violent behavior, about the importance of respect in relationships, about how to recognize when someone might be in danger. They provide resources. They speak at schools and community events. They work tirelessly to make sure that other families don't have to experience what they went through. It's the kind of advocacy work that Jessie herself would have been passionate about. She was someone who cared about making a difference, about standing up for others, and her parents have carried that torch forward in her absence. The project has reached thousands of young people over the years, sparking conversations about violence prevention, gender-based violence, and the importance of creating communities where everyone feels safe. Buck and Joy have shared their story countless times, reliving their trauma over and over again because they believe it can save lives. They talk about Jessie not just as a victim, but as a vibrant, talented, caring young woman who had so much to offer the world. They make sure people remember her for who she was, not just for how she died. And in doing so, they've created a legacy that extends far beyond the tragedy itself. Jessie's story has been featured on Dateline NBC and various other crime documentary series, bringing national attention to the case and to the important work her parents are doing. These media appearances serve a dual purpose. They keep Jessie's memory alive, and they educate a broader audience about the realities of intimate partner violence and the importance of prevention efforts. Every time someone watches one of these programs and learns something new, every time a viewer recognizes a warning sign in their own life or in someone else's, Jessie's story is making a difference. The case also highlights something that's often overlooked in discussions about violence against women. The perpetrator wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. It was someone Jessie knew, someone from her own community, someone who had been part of her social circle. This is the reality for so many victims of violence. The danger often comes from someone familiar, someone trusted, or at least someone known. It's an uncomfortable truth, but it's one that needs to be acknowledged if we're going to make real progress in preventing these tragedies. We can't protect ourselves and our loved ones from threats we refuse to see. Daniel Bartelt's conviction brought justice in the legal sense, but it also raised questions about what could have been done differently. Were there opportunities to intervene before he killed Jessie? Were there signs that were missed or ignored? Could the attack in Richfield have been investigated more quickly, potentially preventing Jessie's murder? These are painful questions without easy answers, but they're important ones to ask. Not to assign blame, but to learn, to improve, to make sure that systems are in place to protect vulnerable people before it's too late. What makes Jessie's story particularly heartbreaking is the sheer potential that was lost. She was only 19 years old. She had her entire life ahead of her. She was going to be a music teacher, inspiring the next generation of musicians. She was going to continue her advocacy work, making her community and the world a better place. She had dreams, plans, people who loved her and needed her. All of that was stolen in a single act of violence by someone who had no right to take it from her. And while her parents have done incredible work to honor her memory, nothing can replace what was lost that night in July. The town of Hartford has never forgotten Jessie Blodgett. Her memory lives on, not just through the Love Greater Than Hate project, but in the hearts of everyone who knew her and everyone who has been touched by her story. Communities have a way of rallying around tragedy, of coming together to support each other, and to make sure that the victims are never forgotten. Hartford has done that for Jessie. They've supported her family, they've embraced the message of the project her parents created, and they've worked to make their community safer for everyone. There's something profoundly moving about the way Jessie's parents have channeled their grief into action. They could have been consumed by anger and bitterness, and again, no one would have blamed them. Instead, they chose love. They chose to honor their daughter by trying to prevent other families from experiencing the same pain. They chose to believe that education and awareness can make a difference, that young people can learn to recognize the signs of dangerous behavior, that communities can come together to protect their most vulnerable members. It's a testament to the human spirit's capacity for resilience and hope, even in the darkest circumstances. The work of the Love Greater Than Hate project continues to this day, reaching new audiences and adapting to new challenges. Violence prevention is an ongoing effort, not a one-time fix. It requires constant attention, constant education, constant vigilance. Buck and Joy Blodgett understand this, and they've committed themselves to this work for the long haul. They speak to students, they work with other advocacy organizations, they share resources and strategies for creating safer communities. Every life they touch, every person they educate, is another step toward the world Jessie would have wanted to see. Jessie Blodgett's life was cut tragically short, but her impact continues to grow. Through the work of her parents and the organization they created in her memory, she's still making a difference. She's still teaching, still advocating, still inspiring people to be better, to do better, to look out for each other. That's the power of turning tragedy into purpose, of refusing to let darkness have the final word. Jessie's story is a reminder that even in the face of unspeakable loss, love can prevail. It's a reminder to pay attention to the people around us, to take warning signs seriously, to create communities where everyone feels safe and valued. As we reflect on Jessie's story, it's important to remember that she was a real person with hopes and dreams and people who loved her. She wasn't just a statistic or a headline. She was a daughter, a friend, a student, a musician, an activist. She mattered. Her life had value and meaning beyond the circumstances of her death. And while Daniel Bartelt took her physical presence from this world, he couldn't take away the impact she had and continues to have through the work being done in her name. That's something worth remembering. That's something worth honoring. The murder of Jessie Blodgett is a tragedy that should never have happened. But in the aftermath, her family has shown us what it means to choose love over hate, hope over despair, action over paralysis. They've shown us that even in our darkest moments, we have the power to create light. They've shown us that one person's life, no matter how brief, can have a lasting impact on the world. And they've shown us that the best way to honor those we've lost is to work toward a future where others don't have to experience the same pain. That's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe and be kind to each other.